As I look out my office window in Salem, Massachusetts, at the massive piles of snow left by blizzard after unrelenting blizzard during the worst winter in memory, I could not help but consider the thoughts a local would have had in 1692. What have we done to incur God's wrath? For New England Puritans living before the age of science, everything was a sign of God's pleasure or displeasure, including extremes of weather. Harsh winters, summer droughts, early frosts that destroyed crops could all be harbingers of God's displeasure. Such phenomenon could also be evidence of witchcraft. After all, God had created Satan to test man's faith, and the evil one often acted through witches. Take, for example, the case of poor Catherine Grady. In 1654, she was aboard a ship traveling to Virginia. As the vessel reached the coast, a tremendous tempest nearly caused the ship to sink. For some reason, her fellow travelers were convinced Catherine was a witch who had created the storm to harm them. The captain agreed and hanged her for witchcraft. Presumably, had she been successful in sinking the ship, she would have used her broom to fly off to safety. Similarly, when Mary Bradbury was accused of witchcraft during the Salem witch hunt, a sailor blamed her for an incident 11 years earlier when his ship was met with a violent storm that we lost our mainmast and rigging and lost 15 horses being transported as cargo. The link between storms and witchcraft are so strong that observers of Salem in other cases often use the analogy. Reverend Cotton Mather described the Salem outbreak as an inextricable storm, as well as inexplicable storms from the invisible world. Cotton's father, Increase Mather, had earlier noted in his essay for the recording of illustrious providences that thunderstorms are often caused by Satan and sometimes by good angels. He also noted that Satan was reputed to be the prince of the power of the air. Wolfgang Bringinger and Emily Austere have both explored the link between witchcraft and weather in Europe. In Witches and Witch Hunts, Bringinger observed that witches were believed to use their powers to cause thunder and lightning, as well as rain, hail, snow, and frost. Outbreaks of witchcraft in Europe tended to coincide with what we now know are the periods of most extreme weather of the Little Ice Age, conditions that led to crop failure, which all too often resulted in famine and economic distress. Simply put, the more miserable people are, the more likely they are to look for a scapegoat to blame for their problems. When I looked to see if these patterns held for America, my reward was learning that Salem witch trials occurred during the absolute worst weather of the entire Little Ice Age. In the 1680s and 1690s are now known as the Maunder Minimum, a time of strikingly cold winters and dry summers. The results are not just personal discomfort, but increasing crop failures. Starting in the 1680s, many Massachusetts towns that once produced an agricultural surplus no longer did so. Once Massachusetts had exported foodstuffs, but by the 1690s was a net importer of corn, wheat, and other cereal crops. Parallels between Salem and the witch hunt of the electorate of Trier, Germany from 1581 to 1595 seemed particularly striking. Both occurred during extremes of weather that resulted in repeated crop failure. Furthermore, while witchcraft traditionally targeted the poor and women, Trier and Salem are notable for the wealthy who were accused, including predominant men. In Trier, Bringinger notes that people believed the merchants who profited by the increased profits from their grain stores were in league with Satan. People testified that the wealthy drove to their black masses in golden coaches. Former Lord Mayors and numerous parish priests, and even higher members of the clergy were accused, including a canon of a cathedral chapter.